Hello everyone and welcome to my new video. What is this video about? Well, I'm going to do some granular multi-sampling. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to try out some granular synthesis techniques, but I'm going to try it on multiple samples all at the same time. What does that mean? Well, the thing is, there are lots of granular synthesizers out there. There's things like Granulator 3, which is brilliant. There are other things. There's one in Reason that I quite like, Grains, I think it's called. There's God knows how many granular samplers, synthesizers on the Reactor user forum. I mean, there's plenty. There's so many that I can barely name any of them. However, from largely what I know, they generally tend to do only one sample at a time. I mean, Granulator 3, as brilliant as it is, only does one sample at a time, which is fine. However, what I want to do is I want to do it with multiple samples all at the same time. I did do a video on this before, so I am kind of redoing the same theme on that video. I'll put a link in the description, but I'm just going about it a very different way, and I'm going to do that all with Sampler. So I'm going to get Sampler in here. Sampler allows you to load multiple samples, as many as you want, I think. I don't think there's any real kind of limit. So we are going to load some samples in. We're going to try and make, it's not really going to be granular synthesis. It's not going to be granular synthesis really in the scientific sense, but the sound, the results are pretty much, I would consider to be the same, just as good. So I went on Free Sound this morning and downloaded some sounds. Let's have a listen to them. It's this one, which is kind of someone flicking the lid of a can, probably like a can of soda or something like that. That's very nice. And then there's this one, which is a fox, scary fox at night. Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, that's very frightening. It's probably just calling its babies home for dinner, but it sounds horrific. Yeah, very good. And then I've got this one of someone turning on the tap and then turning it off. And then there's this one of some birds. Ah, the birds. I wonder what they're saying. Chirping away. What are they saying? They're saying sex? Anyone for sex? Sex? Sex anyone? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, very good. And then we've got this one, which is a lady yawning. I actually recorded that myself. It's a recording of a lady I was talking to who I was telling about my doorless jam. Yeah, it didn't go very well. Anyway, so, right, let's get these all into Sampler. So first of all, I'm going to select them all. I'm going to do this. I'm going to drag them into Sampler like this. We're going to open the zone editor, and they are currently all on the same root note. That is fine. Now, if I play my push, then we're all just going to play at the same time. Different pitches. Okay, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute them to their own individual velocity zones. So now if I press really hard, we get this sample here, which is the scary fox. If I press really, did I press really hard? If I press middling, if I press really hard, then we're getting, why can't we see the, let's make this a little smaller, there we go. Okay, so if I press really hard, we're getting that sample. If I press very softly, softer still, very soft. I don't know what the velocity curve I've got set on my push. There we go. So now we're playing that sample. So in the previous video, what I did was I sort of had the samples laid out in the selection zone, and I was cross-fading between them using the sample selection. This time I actually kind of want it to be a little bit more performative. I want the velocity in which I play determine the sample that gets played. And I'm going to try some other things. I'm going to experiment with the push a little bit to use some of the things like the pressure and the touch strip to access other parameters. And then I'm going to do it more in a kind of sequential MIDI way later on. So the first thing we need to do is kind of make them sound a bit granular. So I'm going to select this first sample. We're going to have to do this for all of the samples, so it takes a little bit of time. You can't just drop in 1,000 samples and click a few buttons and this all works. You have to do them individually. Bit of a drawback, but if you do it with a handful of sounds, it doesn't take that long. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select this first sample, and we're going to go to the sustain mode, put this to loop on. And that means that the sample will loop and will keep looping until you let go. Determined by the sustain of the amplitude envelope. So I'm going to get this here. I'm going to zoom in really close to the start. I'm going to come in a little bit here and then come right down there like that. So we're just looping like a really small part of it. Now, this could be quite tricky to audition because there we go. I'm just looping that bit there. We can go even smaller if we want. Can't really hear it at the moment. So, and we can apply a crossfade. So if I try and press really lightly again, okay, you can't really hear that, but so we're not, granular synthesis works kind of different. You sort of fire off single voices of a burst of a sample. This is kind of like we're just looping round a tiny bit of a sample. But I think the sounds, the results are very similar. So we've done that for the first sample. Now we need to do the same for the second sample. So we'll go here, we'll turn on sustain loop, bring the loop end down right to the very beginning and pull that in a little bit like that and pull that right down really small. Doesn't really matter, just as long as it's small. Apply the crossfade. Okay, do the same for this one. Sustain loop, bring that right down there like that and that up like that. Zoom in a little bit. If you want to get really precise, you can go down to like one sample. You can also adjust it here like this. Loop start, loop end. Okay, that's fine. Apply the crossfade. All right, let's go to this one. Apply the sustain loop. Bring that right down. We could just do that here like this and then zoom in here. Bring that in a little bit like that. Go in a little bit more if we want. Okay, dial in the crossfade. And just the last one, the lady yawning. Let's put that in, something like that. Yeah, something like this. So the sample start and the loop start and loop end are independent of each other in this context, which is good. Let's just put that right in there like that, really small, and apply the crossfade. So what do we have now? This. I think maybe some of these could be even smaller. Yeah, let's maybe make these all even small. Really small loop sizes. We won't hear it much at the moment because we're sort of listening to quiet bits. Okay, another thing that we can do is normalize all the sounds. Maybe this might help in terms of getting them all to a similar sort of volume. So you can right click in the sample of the waveform and go normalize volumes like that. And this is really good. And it does it non-destructively, I think. So it's not going to do it to the actual sample. It just kind of does it relative to where it's residing in the instrument, I think. Normalize panning as well. That's interesting. Right. Okay. I've done that. So that might help us a little bit in getting them all a little louder and to the same volume. So now we've got this. Which sort of just sounds. So yeah, if I press like really hard, we get this sound. If I press a little softer, get this sound. If we do it with lots of voices. Now, some stuff is happening here. They're sort of getting cancelled out, and we need to address that. So if we go to the global tab here, this is very important. And this is actually one of my favorite things about Sampler, is that you can disable the retriggering. And what that does is when retrigger is on, this envelope gets reapplied to every new voice that comes in, effectively cancelling out the envelope of the previous voice. But with retrigger off, it applies a new envelope to a new voice that comes in, giving the previous voice its time to finish the course of the envelope, which is very nice. So it's polyphonic. Everything, as far as I know, all the modulation sources are polyphonic up to 30 voices. So you can trigger 32 LFOs that are going at different rates, and that LFO will get applied to each voice. I think. Anyway, let's turn it off. Stop talking about it, just do it. Let's max out the voices to 32. This might be a little bit of a choke on the RAM, but I've got a good computer, it's fine. So now the voices won't choke out. Now, if we apply like a ridiculous amount of release here, and I let go, they're kind of going to fade out for a long time. That's very nice. Let's increase the volume a little. Let's come up to 0. All right, very interesting. Let's dial in a little bit of attack now. Let's maybe try something like 500 milliseconds. Around about that, 485. All right, yeah, it's getting there. So let's think about what we can do with the push in order to gain access to more of what's going on with these sounds. Because basically what's happening right now is that every time we trigger one, they're all sort of starting at the beginning. They're all sort of starting at the beginning and just looping this first loop point that we've set. So why don't we try something like maybe use the touch strip on the push. If I hold shift and touch that. No, is it select? There we go. Now I've changed the touch strip to the mod wheel. So if I touch the touch strip here, you can see the mod wheel is responding here. So we can link that to something like the loop start position. And then what we'll be able to do is use the mod wheel. You can do this on a keyboard as well. I'm using the push. And then we'll be able to scroll through the start position, effectively moving the loop brace from the sample. So let's try that right now. Now it's very... Now I'm playing... It's a little bit sort of... So what we can do is like use the modulation tab. We can use LFO2. We can apply like some noise here. Turn retrigger off. Turn that up like really, really, really high. And add that to the loop start to sort of apply a little bit of jitter. Let's try like 1%. Yeah, so you can hear it sort of jittering around a little bit. So we're kind of traveling around all of those sounds now at the same time. The sound that gets played is determined by the velocity. And obviously the pitch is determined by which key we press. And the position is determined by the touch strip. And I think there's something going on where maybe... I wonder if we need to have link on. Let's turn link on for all of them because I think what's happening is that it's playing from the start, then to the loop point, whereas I actually want the start position to be the loop start position. Go down an octave. So, you know, very quickly we can sort of make these very weird sort of textures that you can really play. And simply just by, if you've got your hand on some pads or some keys or whatever, just like playing them again in a slightly different order, it's just going to change the entire landscape of it. Okay, so let's try something else. Let's see what we can do with the pressure. We've also got slide. We could maybe try the slide. So slide is up and down. Yeah, slide is up and down. All right, let's try slide. So for those of you who don't have a push 3, this might be a little bit tricky. You could try something like the pitch bend or something, but I'm going to use the slide. So for the slide, I'm going to like slide up and down the pads, and that is going to adjust the loop length of the looped sample, the loop brace that we set earlier, the thing that's going round and round the sample like that. So let's maybe just dial this all the way up and see what this is like. Okay, that's a little bit too much. Let's try 10. Let's try it with one note. There we go. So I'm very slight. It doesn't really look that good on the screen, but as I move down the pad, that is making the loop length shorter. As I move up, it's making it wider. You could maybe go the other direction. So when we're up, that is closed or shorter. When it's down, that's longer. So let's try it with like multiple. So this is kind of fun because you can obviously have fingers moving in different directions. I can't really, so I can have like 3 fingers here. Let's go up an octave. So you can really just sort of move your fingers and find these little sort of Polaroids of not a Polaroid, but, you know, like a kind of sound picture. All right, I'm gonna name this. Gonna rename this to touch strip slide, and I'm going to duplicate this, and I want to keep that, but I want to try it with something else. So let's not use the slide and let's use the pressure instead. So for some of you that maybe who have like keyboards with aftertouch, I think this will work. So let's rename this here from touch strip and pressure. So let's go to pressure and apply that to the loop length. Let's dial that all the way up. So now if I press and press harder, or rather softer, so pressing softly, the loop length is really short. If I press hard, it's open. Let's go the other direction. So when I press hard, I want a shorter loop length. So we can kind of press. All right, let's try that. So this is polyphonic as well. So what's interesting about that is because the pressure is after you've played the note, you could play the notes in different velocities to index your various samples, but then apply the pressure sort of afterwards. So I'm really kind of like doing this with my hand. It's really massaging the granular polyphony. The push 3 is nice for this because these pads are so slidey. You can just slide around. It's really just like So you can really sort of whiz around if you want and sort of find these. All right, I think we get the point. So that's one way to kind of really perform it. So you're really getting involved there. You're really sort of touching the sounds, moving them around, finding things, and then, I don't know, just record that to audio and find some good bits that you like. Okay, so we've done that with MIDI. Well, we've done that with the push or, you know, a controller. Now let's just do it with straight up MIDI clips and some MIDI effects. So I'm going to duplicate this, put that one down. I'll just call this one MIDI clips. And I'm going to disable the, what do we want to do here? Velocity key off velocity. Yeah, we're going to sort of, all right, let's put all these back to, put these to off. And let's start with, I can close the zone editor now, I don't need that. So let's start with just triggering C3 and holding it down for a very long time. Let's maybe make that sort of 4 bars or something. Let's see what we get. So what it's doing is it's playing C3 at velocity 100, I'm guessing. So we could use, first of all, the velocity plugin in our MIDI effects. Now, I, by default, have the velocity plugin set to fixed with random all the way up and output high at 64. You can set that and then right-click, go save as default preset. So that's just going to randomize the velocities. So if we open the zone editor again, we can sort of see that every time it presses a new note, it will go to a different velocity and thus a different sample. All right, nice. We get a nice crossfade there because we're using the global envelope to fade in and fade out each new voice. But it would be fun to maybe do something like use the modulation to access some more of what's going on here, such as the loop start position, which we're already doing here. So this LFO2 is modulating the loop start position in order to make it kind of jitter about. Maybe we can sort of see where that's happening. Yeah, you can see the playhead there is just jittering around. You turn this button on here, when the next sample gets indexed, it will jump to that in here. There we go, like that. So we can see that that is jittering around. If we put that down really low, then it's only a tiny little jitter about, still jittering about. But let's maybe use something like LFO3 to move around the sample. So let's set to forward, ramp up. Let's turn retrigger off so it's just looping in the background. Retrigger will restart the LFO at whatever phase it's at when you press a new MIDI note. But if you turn it off, it just LFOs in the background. So let's have that like quite slow. So now we're moving very slowly, not too slow, I think. Hang on. I didn't assign it to anything. Let's assign it to the loop start. All right. And okay. So yeah, we've assigned it to loop start. Same as that one. Let's turn it all the way up to 100. Let's go back to the sample tab. Wow. Okay. That's very fast. Let's make that really slow. 0.01. There we go. Now we can see that we're moving very slowly through the sound with a little bit of jitter. If we can zoom out of all the samples. So we can do these very interesting sort of transitions. Sort of one sound to the next. You're getting into real sort of weird sound collage stuff. The sustain, wow. Yes. So if we adjust that, we're adjusting the playback rate. So the thing is with forwards, or rather ramp up, it's going to play from the start of the sample to the end and then come back around. But if we use a triangle, it'll play to the end and then come back again. So we could go forwards, backwards. So what if we could have something control that? Well, we could use this auxiliary envelope, I think. So let's turn this on, draw in like an envelope here. Something like this. And again, we can kind of do some stuff with this. We can loop, assign this to the rate of LFO3. Let's turn that like maybe something like that and dial in about 20 on here. So now when we restart a MIDI note, it's going to trigger this aux envelope, which is going to adjust the frequency of this LFO, which is doing the start position of the start position of the sample. Now we can put this to loop and kind of use it almost like an LFO. So we're really taking over the sound in terms of how it's executed and how it's delivered. It's like a sort of weird sonic fever nightmare. I think it's a little, I'm going to compress it a little bit. Let's get a little bit of compression in here. Get everything a little bit more evened out. Let's use the glue. The glue is fine. Soft clip on. Threshold down, loads. Makeup gain up. I really want to hear those clicks, the artifacts. I personally don't mind granular clicks. I don't mind bad sampling. Some people do not like it. I don't mind it. So more of this LFO means it's going to do bigger jumps around the sample whilst it's scrolling. Okay, fun. So because we're using MIDI effects, another thing that we can do is that we can do things like change the pitch of the incoming note. We can do that with the MIDI effect here. Let's use the random. Let's put the random here. Let's say bidirectional sign, choices all the way up, chance all the way up, and then we're just gonna, it'll change the key, the incoming note. So now it's playing this note, and then the clip is gonna play a new note now, that one. So that gives us a little bit more options. But it doesn't stop there. We could make a massive chord. Let's do something like shift this by 1, semitone this by 2, this by 3, and this by 4. I'm not having as much joy as I was expecting with this. Maybe we could swap them around. No, I don't think that would work. I'll persevere. Okay, interesting stuff. Let's go to the pitch tab, and we can do the same thing that we're doing with this aux envelope, but we can apply it to the pitch as well. So let's turn on the pitch envelope. And again, we can set this to loop. Let's have it quite a long loop. Let's say 2 seconds. And we'll just do something like, this. Maybe, doesn't really matter. This maybe, yeah, that's a really good envelope. Okay, let's apply this to the pitch now. Yeah. Huh. I wonder if we strum. Yeah, let's strum this chord. So this is kind of cool. There's this new strum thing they've put in the chord device, is that it will just kind of do all the voices sequentially. With MIDI, it's kind of nice because that means you can sort of delay each MIDI note, which is going to make a huge impact on how all of these envelopes work. Let's really max it out. How far does it go? 400 milliseconds, just to see what that's like. Maybe get a limiter in, so I can really crap out this compressor. Time to velocity. Okay, let's do time to velocity. So this is going to change the timing of the whole envelope based on the velocity. So let's put that to 100%. Let's do the same for this one as well. Let's just see what it does. Let's just try it. Okay, we've still got some more options. We can use LFO1 maybe for the panning. So let's set this to, let's use the sample and hold of this random, to turn that all the way down, turn retrigger on, set the pan to about 50%. So this is going to reposition the panning when a new note comes in. And why don't we use this second destination on LFO3 to go to some panning as well? No. What did I just do there? LFO rate 3. No, panning, pan. Is there panning? Panorama. Let's set that to about 15. Let's see what that's like. There we go. You can see that strum thing working on the chord there as these things get selected. Look at that. Okay. We've also got a couple more destinations that we can use for, let's say, the key or the velocity. Let's go with velocity. Let's say that we can apply how much pitch envelope is determined by the velocity. Let's do that. Let's do something like -50. And maybe we can do the same with the aux envelope as well. Can we do that? No. Pitch envelope. No, there's no... Can't see it. That's okay. I would have thought that would have been in there. Anyway, let's just see what that's... attack time on the amplitude envelope. Let's maybe be a little bit less brutal with the compressor. Too much compression was flattening out the attack time and not giving me enough of a fade in. Let's try something like this. There we go. Let's see if we can add this aux envelope to the frequency of LFO2. LFO2 rate. Let's put that all the way up. I'm not really entirely sure what the... I've been using sampler for a very long time, and I've never been 100% certain what the polarity is between the modulation sources and the destination. I would guess that it's 100 above the current set value, but it could be 100 either side of the current set value. No idea. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about it now. Let's just listen to this absolute mess I've made. We've run out of LFOs. I was going to say we could have signed one of the LFOs to the morph on the filter, which is... I'll just do that by hand. A little bit of reverb here could kind of smear it a little bit. Let's go and I'll just get this one. Let's put that on there. All right, I think that's enough of that. So there you go. That is something that you can do with Sampler. It could be a fairly simple process of just assigning some things to the certain controllers on your MIDI controller and just setting the loop points really small in a sample, or it can get a little bit more kind of complicated and perhaps problematic and perhaps unsettling than this. So there you go. Right, I'm going to go and put that on my Patreon now, or if you'd like to support this channel, you can do that and download this set and download many other sets that I've done in Ableton Live. And your kind support goes towards me making more videos like this, which I hope you enjoy very much. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next time. Bye.